Hope everyone had a good lunch. Welcome back. And for your first talk of the afternoon, let's welcome Al Sweigart talking about automating your browser and desktop apps with Python.
Thanks. Thank you. Can you hear me? Ohayou gozaimasu! I make that joke. I make that joke every time I come to this state. Ohio is good morning in Japanese, and that will never cease to be hilarious to me. So hello, I'm Al Sweigart. Do I need to do something to get the projector on here? Because it's showing up here. Distracting everybody. Just stalling for time.
You already have it hooked up. That could be a problem.
So I just flew in from the coast, and boy, are my arms tired. I could turn this laptop around, and everyone can just gather really closely. Oh, wait. Hit. Oh, wait, yes, okay, yes. So, hi, I'm Al. I'm going to start this talk off with a controversial opinion. I like programming. I like programming so much that I like to teach other people how to program, so I wrote a programming book. It's called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python, and I've released it under a Creative Commons license, so you can read it for free online at, oh, thank you, at automatetheboringstuff.com. And one nice side effect about having it available online is that I can look at the website analytics, and I notice that people really seem to like chapters 11 and 18, which are the web scraping and GUI automation chapters, so that's what this talk is about. So yeah, web scraping. The web is kind of a big deal. No surprise that that's really popular. So yeah. Here's the problem with web scraping, though, is that if you want to write a script that does web scraping, then you have to know all about networking protocols and HTTP and everything like that. But we don't really want to reinvent the browser. Instead, we can use this Python module called Selenium, which will literally actually launch a browser that you can programmatically control from your desktop. So you don't have to reinvent all that code. So Selenium, the first time I heard about this was the place I worked at, the QA department, was creating all these automated tests for our web app, and it sounded like this was something that was really complicated and would have a huge manual, and actually, no, it's really simple. It's ridiculously simple for how amazing it is. In fact, this is how you install it. You just run pip install selenium, and that's it. It's just a one-step install. You use pip just like any other module, and everything that you need to know in order to start doing basic web scraping, it's like 6 things. It fits on one slide. I'll just go over this real quick. So you import it, just like any other module. It has this WebDriver.Firefox function, and this will actually literally pop up Firefox on your screen. And then from there, you can just call the browser's get method to direct it to some website. This is a little scary looking, but basically, if you've ever used CSS, you're probably familiar with selector syntax. And if not, then I'll just go over a way that you can cheat and have the browser come up with these selector strings for you. This basically just identifies a single HTML element on the page, like a link or a button or something like that. And then once you have that element object, you can just click on it, and Selenium will direct the browser to click on it. And then after you're done, you can just call quit, and that will close the Firefox window. So that's it. That's basically, launching a browser, clicking on stuff. That's mostly what web browsing is. So that's my talk. Thank you for coming. There will be no questions. No, actually, so I should really, yes, question? It does, but I'm going to use Firefox because I think with Chrome and Safari and Opera, you have to do some other setup steps. So Firefox for me, as long as you have Firefox installed, worked right out of the box. Right, so in the interest of show, don't tell, now that I'm done telling you all this stuff, I'm going to do something that is incredibly reckless and highly ill-advised, and that is a live demo. Alt-tabbing out of the presentation. Now I'm just going to run idle. Yes, live demos. Anything can go wrong. Everything will go wrong. Live demo. Okay, so, and also I just wanted to show you that it is possible to have all of this stuff in your head. There's really not that much to it. So here we go. I'll just have from Selenium import WebDriver. One really weird thing about Selenium is that you can't just run import Selenium for whatever reason. They make you do this weird from syntax. But once you have that WebDriver, you can call WebDriver Firefox. And this will return a browser object, so I'll just store that in browser. Live demo. Okay, and then this launches Firefox right there. Let me just put that on the right side of the screen. Okay, and then from there, just call browser.get, and we can just send this browser to any web page we want. So I want to plug my book some more, so I'm going to send it to the website, automatetheboringstuff.com. Live demo. Yes, the Wi-Fi still works. Excellent. And there you go. So this is just, typical website stuff. Say you want your browser to click on a link. Let's say this link right here, the introduction one. So ordinarily, you have to come up with, let's see. First, you'll just call find element by CSS. Yeah, another unfortunate thing with Selenium is it has this ridiculously long name for a function that you'll use all the time. But you'll basically call find element by CSS selector, and you'll pass it a string of the CSS selector. And normally, you would just look at the HTML source and then try to figure out one for yourself. Or you can have the browser do it for you just by right-clicking. Oh, did not right-click. Right-clicking. It's really hard to right-click with a trackpad. Oh yes, this live demo is going great. Okay, and then select Inspect Element, and that'll pop up your browser's developer tools. All major browsers today have developer tools, and they all kind of look the same. So once we have that, we want to go and find here in the inspector pane. Whoop. It's really hard to do with tiny resolution. So here's the HTML for the page. We want to find this one. I'll right-click on this, and then select this, Copy Unique Selector. In other browsers, this might come up as Copy CSS Path or Copy CSS Selector, but we can just copy that, and that'll generate the CSS selector for us. Now I can just paste that in here. Oh, another live demo fail. And this will return an element object, so I'll just save that in element. You can see the type is just some selenium.blah.web element. And then from there, we can just click on it. And that'll send us to chapter 0 right here. So that's great. Find element by CSS selector. There's a few other functions. There's find element by tag name, find element by link text, and some other things. But find element by CSS selector is what you'll end up using about 80% of the time. And there's also find elements, plural, which you can send it a more general CSS selector, and it'll return a list of all the matching element objects. And once you have that element object, then you can just either click on it if it's a button or a link or a checkbox, or you can also call send keys if it's a text field. I'll just demonstrate that as well. Live demo. Oh, not that one. So let's go way up here. So here's a nice little search bar. I'm just going to right-click this, inspect element, find out where it is in the developer tools, grab the unique selector for that, and go back here, search element. browser dot, I've typed in this in multiple times, but it's still ridiculously long. Search element. So after that, we have this element for the text field right there, and then we can just pass it a string. Let's say I wanted to have my script type in Zophie into that string. Hey, that's great. So now we can find the element for a submit button, or I could pass send keys to send the enter key. But since this text field element is inside of an HTML form, we can just invoke that form's submit action just by calling submit on one of its elements. And then we can see the search results for that. Zophie, by the way, is the name of my cat, and I have this photo of her that features in the image manipulation chapter. Aww. She's a bit chubby, but the camera adds 10 pounds. That's a lot for a cat. Aww. What were we talking about? Oh, right, Selenium. Right, so not only can you interact with elements on the web page in the browser, you can also control the browser itself. You'll never guess what these methods do. They click the back, forward, and refresh buttons. And okay, so in the previous example, I skipped over reading content off the web. So you can have an automated test for some web app, and this just clicks on things, fills out forms, submit forms, goes to different URLs. That's fine. But you also want to make sure that your web app or whatever you're doing is displaying the right content on the page as well. So this is a little bit trickier. Once you have the element object, you have to look at its text member, and that's it. This will just be a string of whatever is in the content of it. So if you have a paragraph element, you can just look at .text, and it'll have the text of whatever is in the paragraph. If you have a link element and you want to look at one of the attributes inside that HTML tag, such as href, you can just call getAttribute and pass it the attribute name. So, and that's it. That really is it. I mean, think about it. Web browsing is just clicking on stuff, filling out forms, reading text off of the page. Selenium does have additional functions just for doing other stuff, but I really wanted to keep this sort of simplified. And the Selenium documentation is pretty good, actually. But yeah, that's 90% of everything you need to know. Launch Firefox, use CSS selectors to grab an element, click on stuff, type stuff. You're done. So that works for a browser, but what if you have just anything else on your desktop, like you have a program that you want to run and you want to automate testing of that? That's where you can use GUI automation, which basically means controlling the mouse and keyboard from your program. So in the book, I use this module called PyAutoGUI, which I wrote. But when I say I wrote it, what I mean is I took the code from several other modules and also several other Stack Overflow code examples, and I put it into this module because I wanted something that worked on Python 2 and 3, and then also worked on all the major operating systems, and also had a simple API. So you can read the documentation at pyautogui.readthedocs.org. I'm just going to go over a few of the main functions for this, but there's actually a lot of features, especially things that people have also contributed to this project also. So, controlling the mouse. Fairly simple idea right here. You can just import PyAutoGUI, and then you can call pyautogui.click to click the mouse wherever it is, or maybe you can pass it X and Y coordinates for someplace on the screen you want to click on it. Click also has a bunch of optional keyword arguments so that you can change which button you click and how many clicks you have, but there are just some convenience functions for double-clicking or right-clicking as well. And then for moving the mouse, there's move to, which will just move it to some absolute coordinates somewhere on the screen, and then move rel, which will just move it relative to its current position. And normally it'll just move it there instantaneously, or you can have a little duration that shows how long you want to take that move. And there's also dragging the mouse with drag to and drag rel. So live demo, let's tempt the live demo gods one more time. I'm going to call up MS Paint. And then open this one project that I have. Hey, it's still there on my hard drive. That's great. All right, so this is a small program I have. You can see right here, import PyAutoGUI. and then it just clicks wherever the mouse is just to bring the MS Paint program into focus, and then it just calls drag rel just to drag the mouse. And you can kind of see I just have it drag the mouse to the right, and then down, and then left, and then up, and it changes how much it moves, so it draws out this square spiral shape. So I'm going to go here, make sure that the little pencil tool is selected. So this will draw out a nice little square shape, hopefully, when I press F5. Oh my God, amazing. That was awesome. Perfectly precise, like a factory robot arm, just like drawing in MS Paint. That was incredible. Let's do that again. I'm always amazed when I do that. So anyway, there are image libraries, and you might think like, Al, you can just write a program that can generate these little square spiral images. That's nothing. And that's true, but there is no API for MS Paint. So if you have like a fancy art program, such as MS Paint, it'll have all these fancy brushes that you can use. And let's say, let's use this one and change it to this size. And now when we run this program, ooh, this looks like a much more interesting looking photo or picture. And you really couldn't generate this just with line drawing tools in some script. So, and this works with any program. So think of the possibilities that open up once you can control the mouse to control other programs. I'm pretty sure that's how Skynet gets started, actually. So yeah, that's just moving the mouse around. There's also, oh yeah, question.
Hi, you had to pre-select the brush selection and the line style, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can you do that in Python to select those buttons and to select different?
Yes, you can. Oh yes, so he asked if here in MS Paint, if I could have had the program just click on all these brushes for me. And the answer is yes. I just didn't want to trifle with the live demo gods and have that. So this program is pretty simple. So other programs, position, this just returns the XY coordinates for where the mouse is currently. Size returns just the resolution of your screen. And then there's also display mouse position, which is really nice because when you're running, when you're first setting up this GUI automation thing, you want to say like, oh yeah, I want the mouse to click here, and then click here, and then click here, but you actually have to figure out where here is. So PyAutoGUI has this display mouse position subroutine, which basically just allows you to move the mouse around, and it just constantly prints out where the XY coordinates are. So if I have a program and it's like, oh, I want to click on this close button right here, you can then just look at the XY coordinates right there and write them down. And it'll also tell you the RGB color values of whatever pixel is currently underneath the mouse. So this is information you can use when you're first writing out your script. So keyboard control. The main function here is just type write. You just pass it a string, and it'll type out those same keyboard keys into whatever window currently has focus. It'll do that instantly, so you can add an interval in seconds that it takes a pause in between each character in the string. So I'll have this nice little typewriter effect. A typewriter, for those of you who don't know, is this ancient device used to make letters appear on paper. But anyway, if you have a keyboard key that you can't really just express in typewrite, like the page up key or the escape key or the F12 key or whatever, you can just call press and pass it that one key. All the keyboard names are in the online documentation, but they're also stored in keyboard keys. That's just a list in the PyAutoGUI module. Or if you have some hotkey combination, like you want to press Control-O or Control-Shift-P, F5 or whatever, you can just call the hotkey function and pass it a list of, or a bunch of different keys to press. So anyway, at this point, talking about GUI automation, it seems really cool, and you can write all these scripts to start doing all these amazing, complicated things. One warning about GUI automation in general, which I'll take from the Disney movie Fantasia. There's this scene where Mickey Mouse is a sorcerer, and he's supposed to fill up this tub full of bucketfuls of water, so he enchants a broom to do it, and the broom just mindlessly gets stuck into an infinite loop, constantly doing what it's programmed to do, and eventually the tub fills up and starts overflowing and the water spills out everywhere. this is basically what can happen with your GUI automation program, because it's currently moving the mouse around and also clicking on the keyboard keys, and you kind of need a mouse cursor to be able to click on the program and press Control-C. So there are a few fail-safe options built into PyAutoGUI. And the first one is, if you want to just raise a fail-safe exception, you can move the mouse to the top left corner. So if things are just going crazy, you can just like slam the mouse up and to the left, and hopefully you'll be able to get it up there in time and wrest control back. There is PyAutoGUI.pause, which is set to 0.1. That adds a 1/10 of a second pause at the end of every single PyAutoGUI call. So you can increase that to something else. That'll slow down your program in general, but it'll also make it a little bit safer and easier to follow. And I'll be demonstrating that in a live demo at the end of this. And then there's a really cool part. So doing image recognition with PyAutoGUI. So before, with controlling the mouse on the keyboard, it's sort of like you're programming a robotic arm working in a factory, just blindly going through the same pre-programmed steps over and over again. But with these features, you can actually have it read what's on the screen. So PyAutoGUI uses Pillow, which is the successor to Pill, the Python image library for all of its screenshot capabilities. On Linux, you'll have to install this one new application to get it to work. It's called Scrot for screenshot. It's a really unfortunate name, I think. But anyway, so there's PyAutoGUI.pixel. You just pass it in X and Y coordinates, and it'll return an RGB, like a 3-integer tuple of the red, green, blue color values. So that's nice for a quick sanity check. If you want to click on a gray submit button, you want to make sure that that gray pixel is actually there so you know what you're clicking on. You can also take screenshots of your current screen, maybe pass it a file name if you want to save that screenshot to the file. This will just return an image object that you can use Pillow or Pill to modify. But the best function of them all is locate on screen, which is really nice. You can take some image file, like you have a screenshot that you took of a calculator, and so you cropped it so that you have an image of the 7 button. Let me just do a live demo of that right now. Hey, that's great. Let me just screenshot. Where's MS Paint? Perfect. I can just take this, maybe just fit that right there. Try to just crop this down to this, so I could have this image of the 7 button and then have an image of every other button in the calculator app as well, and save this to some file, and then pass that file to the locate on screen. And so PyAutoGUI will then just look on the screen for wherever this button is, and then return the coordinates for, I think it's the left edge and the top edge for the X and Y, and then the width and height of that region. So you can find out where on the screen it actually is. Question?
Yeah, so what if you take an image of your calculator, then you go to another computer, it's in a different resolution, and everything's a different size?
Oh, okay. So the question is, what if you're going onto a different computer which has like a different resolution or some other change? And the answer is, it probably won't work. So locate on screen has to do a pixel perfect match. So if you have some like transparency effect or something else like that, it won't work. There are, however, I think it's like tolerance is the name of the keyword option, that you can then pass, and it'll do a fuzzy match. That you also have to have the OpenCV module installed as well. That does a whole bunch of computer vision stuff. But just like, so hopefully this will work in most cases, but then if it returns none, then obviously it wasn't able to find it. And it can be really frustrating if the image that you're looking for is off by 1 little pixel or something like that. Yeah, but this is how you can have your program actually see what's on the screen. So, what is GUI automation used for? Probably should have had this slide at the very top, but I just wanted to say, well, you know, with Selenium, you can automate your browser and any web apps. But with GUI automation, now that you're controlling the keyboard and mouse, you can automate any type of app. But not only that, GUI automation is also kind of nice for automating web apps themselves, because you might have an HTML5 canvas, which just draws random things in your web browser. There's no HTML elements as part of that, so you can't really get any certain part inside the canvas tag, or if you have a flash animation going on and you want to click on certain buttons inside that flash animation, that's not something that you can do with Selenium, but you can do if you just have something that can control the mouse and keyboard. But the main thing that I think what GUI automation is wonderful for is writing bots to cheat at flash games, which takes us to another live demo. Okay, so there's a game called Sushi Go Round. It's like this Dine and Dash clone where you have customers coming in and ordering sushi, and then you have to click on all the ingredients, but you also have to keep track of how many ingredients you have and order refills and all these other crazy things, and it's a really complicated game that I have no interest in playing whatsoever. So I wrote a program to do it for me, and hopefully this will work. Okay. And sacrifice a chicken behind the podium to appease the gods, and this will work. All right, here it is. No hands. It's taking control. It recognizes where on the screen the window is, and then it just waits for customers to come. I have images for all of the various orders that the customers can make, and then it's also pre-programmed with how to make them and where to click on to fill out all these orders. You can see a whole bunch of debugging information going out here. And yeah, it actually seems to work. You can get through like all 7 days of business here. There are human players that have a much higher score than this bot can get, and that's really impressive and kind of appalling also. But this bot can do way better, can play this game way better than I can. Yeah, okay, so now going to the back of, to the point of like, oh, right, how do I shut this program down? Because I can't click on the close button as long as the mouse is going all around. So I'll just slam the mouse up to the up and left, and that'll trigger the fail-safe and shut down the program. So that is how you can automate with just these two simple modules, Selenium and PyAutoGUI, how you can automate all your web apps in your browser or just any desktop app that you have as well. You can download these slides from bit.ly/automatetalk, or you can find the book for free, freely available online at automatetheboringstuff.com. I'm going to be in Columbus until Tuesday, so before going back to San Francisco. So if you want to hang out, just tweet at me or send me an email. Thank you very much. And I guess we can pass the mic around for questions also.
I didn't see how you connected PyAutoGUI to Paint and the Flash game. Is it just going to a set point on the screen and you had to make sure that you put the game in the right spot for it to work?
Well, for the Sushi Go Round part, here I can rewind this. I use the locate on screen part, so that would find, I think it was like this upper left corner, this part right here, which says version 1.6. And then from there, it could realize relatively where on the screen the Flash window was. So that's how that worked. Back for the MS Paint example, it would just start drawing from wherever the mouse was previously. So I just set up the mouse cursor already over the MS Paint window. Yeah, any other questions?
So have you considered, as far as, you know, it's very dangerous to do the live demos. Why haven't you automated those yet?
Oh, what was that?
Why haven't you automated the live demos yet?
And this is the part where I reveal I'm actually a robot. I was thinking about that, and well, as I was putting together this whole slide deck, I thought like, well, I could just automate all that, but then I was starting to freak out that I had way too much content, and I was going to run over my time, which actually I ran underneath my time. Yeah, also, ever since writing this book, everybody makes that joke to me. Like, no matter what I'm doing, I was like, yeah, I had an Egg McMuffin this morning, and that was pretty good. It's like, oh, why don't you automate that, eating that Egg McMuffin? And it's like, yeah. I really brought that on myself, though. But, yeah, trust me, that actually might be a good setup just to automate giving this talk. There's a scene, and if any of you have seen that movie Real Genius, where it takes place on a university, and like as the semester progresses, more and more kids are just like bringing in tape recorders to record the lecture until eventually the professor has just set up a tape player to broadcast the lecture to an empty room full of tape recorders. A tape recorder is this ancient device used to record audio on magnetic tape. Yeah, any more questions?
For the locate on screen function, does that return a list or something if there's multiple instances that it can find of the image?
So locate on screen will return just the tuple of the first place it finds it, and I think it starts looking at the left and then goes across. But there is locate all on screen. Let me bring up readthedocs.org. So screenshot functions. Let's see. I think, yeah. There's locate all on screen, which will return just a list of all those tuples, telling you where every single thing it found was. This function is kind of expensive to call. It takes like a full second to scan the entire screen. So if you're playing some live action game that requires immediate responses, it's probably not good enough for that. However, you can specify. Oh, I guess I need to update this documentation. You can specify just a smaller region of the screen to check instead of checking the entire screen, and I'll speed it up much more.
Thank you.
I guess. Hello? Okay, yeah.
It seems like you should probably have a way to be able to check what the resolution is to help you find things.
Yes, and that was way back in some previous slide, but that is the PyAutoGUI.size function. And unfortunately, PyAutoGUI is really only tested on single screen setups, so if you had multiple screens plugged into your computer, I'm pretty sure it would only return the resolution for your primary screen. That's something that's on GitHub as an issue. Any other questions?
Don't most GUIs have object representations so that you could hook into the GUI using objects as opposed to just relying on coordinates?
Oh, yes, they do. So a lot of the features that I wanted for this module I based off of this Windows program called AutoHotkey. And AutoHotkey does have things where it can like give you a list of all the windows that are on the screen and then give you all the coordinates for where they're located and how wide and tall they are. And that is something that I eventually want to add to PyAutoGUI. Or, if you have time at one of these sprints, you could totally this is up on GitHub, and I also have a roadmap of features, and adding just that is sort of the first thing that I would like. But the trouble is I found documentation for how to do that on Windows, but I want to make sure that there's also a way to do it on Mac and Linux. Because the main reason I created this module was because there were a lot of good modules on PyPI that do things like this, except they would only work for Python 2, or they would only work on Linux, or they would only work on Windows. And I wanted the one module to rule them all, sort of thing. But yeah, any other questions?
Okay, so is there any way to run almost like a ghost mouse to click it so you can still use the system, or while you're running that automation script, what does it take the mouse completely from you?
Oh yeah, it takes over the mouse completely. I suppose if you wanted, you could just run this Python script inside of a virtual machine and then just see it moving around there. I think I've discovered some issues with Ubuntu, running Ubuntu inside of VirtualBox, which didn't seem to work. But if you had actual Ubuntu, it would work. Right. But yeah, currently you have to do it live if you want to test out your program. Any more questions? Oh, yeah, right here in the front.
What do you have planned next with this or other packages you're working on?
Oh, man. Okay, so there's the window information, which would be great for this. Also, I know there's actually a lot of issues kind of backed up on this project, mostly dealing with, I know French keyboards don't work, or like some of the characters are weird, which kind of blew my mind because I thought, at least on Windows, all the virtual keys would be the same. Apparently the French have different keyboards than us. Crazy, I know, yeah. It's like they don't even speak English. And then also just multi-screen support, and also features that would just help you sort of run this program without actually clicking on things so that you could do a dry run just to make sure it's doing what you think it should be doing. Things like that, but I'm really open to other ideas about features that this could have. Yeah, right there.
How about remote desktop support?
Ooh, that would be nice. Yeah, I mean, there's also especially a lot of opportunities for pulling pranks with this, just having the mouse move around. But yeah, being able to run this program, I mean, essentially at that point, I think I'm reinventing VNC. But yeah, that would be a good idea. Just being able to remotely move mice and keyboards off on different screens or on different computers. Yeah, question up front?
So is there a difference between what this library sends, like virtual keys and actual presses on a keyboard? As I remember one time I tried to kind of automate an emulator using AutoHotkey, and it wouldn't accept the key presses. It just didn't detect them. It was some kind of issue where they were different.
Yeah, and I'm almost positive there are issues like that when you have virtual key presses compared to actual keyboard key presses as well. So I know at least for Windows, they publish all of these open API calls that you can then call from your Python script, and they should work just as how AutoHotkey or any other keyboard emulation software would work. But I'm almost certain that there's probably some programs that will be really finicky and demand that you have a real keyboard plugged into it. I'm almost certain that that's the case. I can't come up with any specific examples right now, though. Yeah, any more questions? Okay, well, so thank you very much. Here's all the information again. Thanks for coming out. This has been great.